And Twicler have made some really great budget title games for like a couple of quid that evoke lots of classic arcade games, but actually are way better than what you'd originally give them credit for. In particular, their Mace Tower Defense games I thought were fantastic. And Twicler have now turned their hands to Pitfall and Spelunker, combining the two together to create Pyramid Quest, where you run around pyramid-styled levels, trying to find all of the different gems, and everything for like a tome to slot together so that you can unlock the exit and escape. It's very simple, it's done in a 2.5D graphical style, but actually it's all 2D all the way through, and it's got some weird, odd inconsistencies, but largely is again very playable for a budget price. There's 36 levels in all, and inside each of the levels you'll be running, jumping, occasionally firing out a dagger to kill enemies, but mostly trying to avoid the enemies and all of the traps of like boulders running down alleys and stuff like that, so that you can keep going and get to the exit. There'll be 5 different types of coins scattered everywhere, and levels are designed a little bit like a maze, so you'll often start out in the middle and then you'll have to work your way around specific like mini platforming set pieces that at the end of it will normally trigger a switch which will then unlock another door which allows you to go a bit further elsewhere. The levels took a little bit of getting used to for me because I quite like and prefer levels where you start at one side and kind of navigate your way through quite linearly, whereas sometimes with this you'd end up like completing say 70% of a level and then realise that you'd missed a bit because you'd gone left instead of right somewhere early on, and so you had to backtrack all the way through the level to then go, right, let's try the other side now. Because there's no specific kind of go left first or go right first. It's very different in every level. That does add some artificial time to the game as you play through, but this is really a completionist dream. You'll want to get 100% of the coins of the 5 different varieties. In order to actually exit the level, you'll have to combine 1, 2, 3 or 4 different like slots of a tome so that it then creates like a little totem tome and opens the exit door for you to then get to. Now your character is, just like Spelunker, absolutely wimpy. They can't attack anything, you can't jump on anything's head, you will die. And you've got 4 hearts, but those are also for if you fall too far. And falling too far is normally the main way how you'll die in this game. I found that just like in normal life, you can't really fall further than your own body size again. So this involves like very simply just navigating down like a couple of little jump steps here and there. You get it wrong and you miss a step, you will break your legs and fall out the pyramid and die. So then it's back to these regular checkpoints, and there's these green gems that are based on like various different points around the level, which does mean that if you do respawn back, you don't fall too far behind. And so it's kind of a small penalty, but the trick is to make sure that you've still got some hearts and lives left by the time you get to the exit, because you only get a couple of daggers in order to attack enemies. And so you have to kind of pick your battles. If you've got snakes in front of you, just dive over them. Same with mummies. But if you've got, say, skeletons that are going to throw their head or a bone at you and you're thinking, oh, I need to time this jump, that's when you tactically use your dagger to clear the path so that you then can just focus on the actual platforming in front of you. The game itself, in terms of platforming, is largely consistent, except for occasionally I would find that you'd have to kind of run slightly off the edge on some of the jumps to then jump at the right point and then make it to the other side. Because if you jump whilst you're still fully on the previous platform, you wouldn't jump far enough and you would miss the platform. The problem with some of these jumps is that occasionally there's a bit of lag in the actual pressing of jump and it acknowledging you jumping, and so you just kind of fall off, and then that would cost you a life, and that gets a little bit old, particularly in the second half of the game from about level 20 onwards, because you're sitting there thinking, come on, because at that point I was tuned into wanting to get 100% of everything in the levels, and that's because some of the trophies are tied to getting a certain amount of stars, and a lot of the gold trophies are actually about getting 100% of all the coins as you go through. This isn't a cheap and easy like Ratalaika or East Asia Soft style platinum. You're going to have to work for it and actually complete the game, which I quite like. The game will take you about 3-ish hours to get through, not 100% completing. You'll then need to kind of really go back and be like, right, now I'm going to make sure that I don't get touched by anything. And some of that is down to the fact that there's a little bit of inconsistency with the platforming that will trip you up. The rest of it is down to actually some quite good game design. I enjoy these types of Egyptian style games. I'm a sucker for a pyramid and like a proper old school platformer, and this does it well. It does nothing new, but it does emulate its arcade classic influences very well. So if you were a fan of Pitfall, Spelunker, I'd probably throw Burger Time into this. Elevator Action potentially, because a lot of this is around going up and down ladders, timing jumps and avoiding traps that are time based, so that you have to kind of run into it and run away again. And Spelunky obviously is one of the most recent ones that does this too. I think you'd probably do quite well with Pyramid Quest, although if you've suffered some of those original classics and you actually completed them and you were good at them, this will be on the easy side for you, because if I can get to the end of the game without too much trouble, I'm a mediocre player. You guys that have completed Pitfall, Spelunker and Co's, you'll be god tier, and you will breeze through this one. Written review will be over on higherplanegames.com. It ain't no Lara Croft, but it will certainly please some people. Higher Plane Games is part of the Higher Plane Network, a completely independent media outlet supported by people like you. The goal is to create the best possible content that cultivates a richer indie scene for games as well as music and entertainment. To find out more and to get involved, visit patreon.com/higherplane-network. Your support makes all the difference, and in return you'll gain access to bonus content and downloads. Thank you for watching.